All right. Hey, welcome back to the Go for CEO channel. This is your host, John the Bomb. Building others means business. And I'll tell you what, I'm super excited today because this is an industry I know nothing about. I have been formally introduced through the website and Julio Martinez and his little bit of an off-channel discussion. This is pretty cool. So stay tuned to what's going to go on here at Go for CEO community. You're going to learn a lot about this biomedical space and an entrepreneur and person that has founded an incredible company called BioAccess. So Julio Martinez-Clark, welcome to the podcast.
Absolutely. John, thank you for having me. I look forward to our conversation and to illuminate listeners in this exciting space of medical device and biopharma innovation and clinical research and everything that goes behind the scenes in this industry.
Well, and what's cool is Go for CEO community. You may remember that I'm half Colombian, and this gentleman is also from Colombia. So it was a cool connection right away. And this is so cool about the Go for CEO community and podcasting in general. We're all connecting around the world and in the United States and abroad to really kind of bring this type of information and share with them the cool stories. So we typically start with our founders and guests to say, hey, where did this idea come from? Were you from the industry? Did you think about something that impacted you? Was there a story behind it? So I'll let you share that story and we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, it's an intriguing story that started with my brother, Pedro. Pedro is a physician. We left Colombia about 40 years ago, pretty much around the same time. I left a couple of years earlier. But the point is that he trained in Colombia as a doctor, as a physician, general surgeon. And then he moved to the US. He settled in the Boston area. He did a couple of years of basic research at a Harvard lab. And then he passed his exams, and then he got into residency at the Metro Health Medical Center in Cleveland, Ohio. And after that, he went back to Boston and he did cardiology at the Harvard Medical School. And he also did his fellowship training in interventional cardiology at the same school, Harvard, and at the same hospital, the Beth Israel Medical Center. And that put Pedro in a very unique position where very few Latin Americans have been, at least in the cardiovascular space. And then he moved to Miami and he became a professor at the University of Miami. And he met his mentor at the university, Dr. William O'Neill, Bill O'Neill. He is world famous in interventional cardiology. And when you are that stature, you are a highly sought after advisor for medical device startups or biopharma startups that are developing some advanced innovations in the cardiovascular space. So Dr. O'Neill and Pedro advise many startup companies in the preclinical and clinical. Preclinical meaning animal studies to validate the prototypes of medical devices, more specifically, and also in the clinical stage where they tested the devices in live humans. And they worked through the university office, these type of studies around the world. And they quickly realized, John, that there was really nobody helping these companies with their first in human early phase studies because of the fact is that a lot of companies in the industry, the type of companies that we are in the industry are called contract research organizations, CROs, contract research organizations. So most of the CROs are targeting the big boys, the big pharma companies like Pfizer, Merck, etc. So if you're a small startup, nobody really pays attention to you. So you have very unique needs, different from the ones from the big guys. And also you have lower budgets than the big pharma companies. So there was really nobody helping these medical device startups at that time. And that's the genesis of BioAccess. I mean, Dr. O'Neill and Pedro decided to create a company outside of the university ecosystem to assist these companies with their early stage clinical trials, more specifically in Latin America.
It's very neat. And obviously the connection with your family, having someone that's a brother, right, and to see him grow and then be able to execute. So your particular background, was it also in the medical space, or did you kind of bring the business sense and savvy
Yes,
of that sense?
yes, exactly. Yes, my background is in electrical engineering. I completed my degree in Bogota, Colombia, and then I moved to the US around 1990 something. And then I settled in the Boston area. I worked for a couple of global telecom and networking companies, Nortel, Lucent, big companies at that time. And then I got my MBA in the Boston area, and then I got approached by Pedro saying, Julio, we're doing this, we need some help, we need to put together a team, can you lead this effort? And that's what I did.
That's awesome. Well, look, I mean, obviously it's such an intricate space, right? And a lot of, I guess, conversations over the last 5 years since the pandemic and kind of where our pharma's coming from and what's going on. So tell us a little bit about some of those areas, right? And how you moved initially those first 90s, 180, 6 months to a year of creating BioAccess and what that service space was going to look like for your potential avatar client.
Yes, yes. Well, let's start with the ideal client. Um, it's usually a startup company that is a spin-off of a university in the United States. Usually these companies are created in university ecosystems in San Francisco or in San Diego or in Minneapolis or in Boston, some areas where there is a lot of medical innovation. And the company is usually created by a couple of individuals who saw the need, or actually who saw the opportunity in patent, in an intellectual property inside a university. Usually the innovation happens in the university with government grants most of the time, and they research something and they come up with an innovation. But their business is not to create companies. Usually the business of the university is to be a university, to do research and to educate people. But entrepreneurs identify the opportunity and identify the intellectual property and they run with it. They create a company in Delaware with one single purpose. The purpose is, of course, to save lives, to help people. That's all great. But financially, their purpose is to sell the company to a bigger player. In other words, the startup gets created, they get some funding, a couple $1 million or so, depending on the complexity of the innovation, and then they go through different series of funding, Series A, angel investment, Series A, Series B, whatever, and then they get acquired eventually by the big players like Boston Scientific, Johnson & Johnson, Medtronic, etc. So that's really the cycle of innovation. That's how the big players are always feeding their innovation machine. They're always remaining competitive by acquiring these smaller startups. So the first years of BioAccess were challenging, of course. We were a small company. I didn't know anything about this industry. Pedro certainly didn't know much. I mean, he was a physician, or he's still a physician. Dr. O'Neill is a physician, but they're more clinical. They're not business people, or they were not business people at that time, certainly. And they were not experts in the clinical research business, which is different from the clinical business of seeing patients every day and doing procedures. So we had to research a lot, talk to a lot of people. We went through a long process of trial and error. We made a lot of mistakes, but we also learned a lot. And slowly we grew. And now fast forward 15 years. Now we're a team of 40-something collaborators, and we are in about 10 different countries or more around the world, and only in Latin America.
That's fantastic. So do you guys also collaborate with like patent attorneys, or is there not a connection there?
No, there's really no connection. Our
Okay.
clients do that internally, and we hear the stories,
Oh,
and
okay.
we've learned about patent law and things like that because the stories that our clients tell us, but we're not really getting involved in those intricacies of the development of medical innovation.
Okay. Well, look, I mean, obviously, as a service, one of the actionable items is you're trying to seek ways to simplify your potential client's life, right? In the life
Yes,
cycle of what you just talked about, from that innovation stage. I didn't realize that the universities were kind of like the breeding ground of these
yes,
opportunities.
the engines.
You know, which is interesting because the entrepreneur thinks, here's a great way to find an idea. And I wonder if is it typically the students within that then become the entrepreneur that takes
That
that
happens a
idea?
lot.
Okay.
Yes, a lot of our clients are new CEOs who were PhD graduate students at the university, and they were part of the lab that developed the innovation, and they license the technology from their own lab and their own university, and they run with it. They create the startup, they raise the funds, and they bring people from the team, the research team, and yeah, that's usually how it happens. Sometimes the university finds a third party who is has more entrepreneurial personality, who identifies the opportunity and creates the company. But sometimes you see internal students who create spin-off companies.
Yeah, it made me think. One of my buddies invested in a kind of a vest that I'm wearing here, like, but for Parkinson's, it kind of
Mm,
lessens the tremors and stuff like that. And it kind of,
yeah.
I believe, it came from that type of scenario where they were
Mm,
building something that was a vest for people that are with Parkinson's dealing with that. And it's interesting to kind of see the innovation of where they've
yeah.
gone. So for BioAccess, I mean, obviously 14, 15 years in business, having the medical grade talent, the brother that comes in with the entrepreneurial side and thoughts of kind
Yeah.
of where you were with big business and learning that, what were some of those opportunities when you started to look for talent, right? Obviously the clients, the revenue starts growing, and then you need talent to be able to
Yeah.
service those. Give us a little bit of that journey of what did that look like from your perspective?
Well, the most of our journey, talent-wise, is happening or started happening and still happening in Latin America, because it's
Oh,
really where we need to have operational talent, foot on the ground, as people say, because we are in several countries, we have a presence in several countries, we have experience conducting trials in several countries, and we have identified that Latin American physicians have a lot of talent, and they don't always know that there's another path in their careers, which is industry. And what they think about industry is usually work for a pharmaceutical company, doing sales or something like that. But no, what we offer to them is a totally different opportunity, is being part of the medical innovation ecosystem, the medical innovation industry, and more specifically, the clinical research industry, where this is an industry that moves billions and billions of dollars, and over 30,000 trials are conducted every year, and it's growing and growing. I mean, hockey stick type of growth.
hmm.
So we identify excellent bilingual talent from top universities, mostly in Colombia, by the way. Universidad Javeriana, Universidad de los Andes. I mean, great universities in Colombia, Ivy League level universities, where we tap into to identify those talented individuals. They're usually young, 25 years old or so, and they're just starting their careers. They probably had just one job before BioAccess, and we train them because what we do is unique in the region, and we train them. The training usually, I mean, it's on-the-job training, and it usually lasts about 2 or 3 years, and they're ready to roll after that.
Wow. So I guess from a capital standpoint, right? A service-based business can have a lot of intense employee capital that needs growth. You're actually out of the country, right, and doing international business. What are some of the ways that you guys have handled kind of that growth trajectory, right? If you're doing a hockey stick right now, has it been that you've been able to bring on some capital from investors, or have you kept it bootstrapped this whole time and grown
Bootstrap.
on On pure revenue? Okay. Okay.
Yes,
Neat.
we've bootstrapped the company. We've always been reinvesting whatever profits we make. At the beginning, it was really tough, to be honest with you, because of the fact that we didn't really know about the business. We didn't know how to create the contracts right. We didn't know how
Mhm.
to put budgets right. So we made a lot of mistakes. We were making a living, but we were not really seeing the growth that we wanted to see profit-wise and year over year growth that we wanted to see. But something happened about 3 years ago that uh, changed everything. A combination of the pandemic, a combination of the amount of content that we're probably generating and the amount of noise we're making in the industry because we're the only ones doing this type of work, to be honest with you,
Wow.
in Latin America. So
Hmm.
it took us a while to get the word out and for people to start referring business to us. I think it's great when you have inbound marketing, not outbound marketing, right? When business comes to you because people are referring to you, or people find you online because you recorded a great podcast episode or you wrote a great article answering questions that the industry needed. So so yeah, that's been the journey in terms of growing the company. And for employees, we are very supportive of them taking courses for them to get certifications, which is very uncommon in Latin America because the industry still in the region doesn't hasn't really embraced the certification initiatives that are happening in other parts of the world. But now there are more available in the region, and more people are learning about this possibility to certify their competencies in clinical research. So we are actually promoting that our employees get a world-class certification. There are a few out there, and they also attend international events in clinical research.
Neat, neat. So I guess one of the things that I would ask is, in this growth cycle, has it been through independent contractors? Is that how they're positioned with you, or are they
Yes,
W-2 employees, or?
we have three W-2 employees, including myself. It's because of the nature of the business, John. I mean, we're in 10 or more different countries, so we cannot really have a company in each one of these countries and employees in each one of these countries and the overhead to manage the administrative burden for all these payroll and all that is too much. So what we do, the model that we have, and works for both of us, I mean, for us and the employee, is to have a freelance, independent contractor type of relationship where they
Mhm.
get work from us. I mean, a lot of work. I mean, they're so busy with us that they cannot work for anybody else. And they get great compensation for that work,
That's
above,
awesome. Yeah, I mean,
above
look,
average in
yeah.
local salaries. Yes.
Yeah, especially, I mean, you're saying, the talent that you've been able to pluck from the South American side,
Yeah.
Colombia, and seeing where those opportunities are. So from their day to day, so give us a little insight. Obviously, their day to day that are boots on the ground. What are they doing? Is their target the universities that you first talked about? Is their target the entrepreneurs that are filing for something that they get responses and now they can, engage for that opportunity to have BioAccess be the facilitator?
Remember that there are two sides of our business, and we sit in the middle. The first side of the business is the actual university, and even more precisely is the actual startup that started from a university.
Hmm.
So that's the client that calls us or finds us online, and that's the client that wants to have a clinical trial done outside of the United States. So the foot on the ground that we have is outside of the United States for that purpose, so that they can identify hospitals where we have the right patient population and the right investigators to match the needs of our clients. So the client comes in, and then my team identifies locally in Colombia, in Panama, in the Dominican Republic, in Mexico, whatever, the right hospital that has the right talent, meaning the investigator with the right patient population to match the study that the sponsor wants to conduct outside of the United States. So the team that we have, the operational team that we have in Latin America is the one who that manages the daily activities of the studies. I mean, meaning site search and selection, the regulatory submissions of the documents. Of course, we have to translate everything to Spanish or Portuguese if we do a study in Brazil. We have to file for approvals at the national level, different regulatory agencies or Ministry of Health. We have to actually do the importation process of bringing into the country the investigation of products and place the products at the hospitals where we're going to conduct the studies. We'd have to do a lot of reporting in case there's adverse events or something with the new experimental product or device or molecule. And we also have to do the monitoring of the study, which is like a third-party inspection of all the paperwork in the study to make sure it is being done correctly. And then we close the study. So I will say that 90% of the whole activity happens in Latin America. In this case, if we do a study in Colombia or in Panama. Yeah. And that's where we have the staff. Yeah.
It reminds me, I mean, it's a bit of a business in the box. My day-to-day life is commercial banking. I always say a business should have a great accountant, right? CPA, a great attorney, and a great banker, selfishly I say. But in your space, they have to have a BioAccess, right? They have to have someone teaming up with them to show them each 4 or 5 different I guess tentacles, right, of that space, and how to kind of connect the dots of everything for a business in the box per se, right? So
yes,
neat.
absolutely.
So help us understand, I mean, from a revenue standpoint, BioAccess teams up with these entrepreneurs that are starting it, and they're teaming up with the university, and you're kind of making this. Are you guys on contracts, or is that an hourly service level that you
contracts. Of course, we execute a master service agreement with our clients, and we execute alongside with the master service agreement, or subsequent to the master service agreement, a work order or scope of work type of order. And that outlines the different activities that the client needs us to execute in the study. And it's usually fixed price, fixed fees. We don't work early because it's not really conducive for the client to budget exactly how much the study is going to cost, because these are startups. They need to raise funds. They need to know exactly how much the study in Panama with 20 patients is going to cost, so that they can ask their investors for that money and a little bit more in case there's some unexpected events. So we give our clients very good budgets based on fixed rates per activity, because we already know we've been doing this for about 50 years. We already know how many hours each activity is going to take. So we just do the math internally, and we just present the client with a fixed fee price per activity.
Nate, well, I mean, as a startup, the burn rate is important, right? So
yes, exactly.
I know the investor wants to. Wait, you need another 5 million? You need another half?
Yes,
so
yeah. We're very conscious of that fact. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
You're an integral part. I mean, so has it been challenging? Obviously, from a startup perspective, you get maybe that initial funding. Have you found it difficult? You hit a roadblock. You still need another $1 million or $2 million investment to get you and that team through the finish line, or through your proverbial finish line. Has that been difficult?
Yes, I've seen the challenges, the funding challenges that our clients face, and that affect us sometimes. I mean, if they don't pay us because they need more funding, we have cash flow issues because, as I said, we have bootstrapped the company, so we don't have an external source of funding or anything like that. So we rely on this constant influx of payments so that we can continue moving on each one of the projects. And I've seen that some of our clients put some projects on pause sometimes because they ran out of funding, or the raise is taking longer than they anticipated. So yes, we've seen some delays in the funding world based on what's happening in the industry. There's a sentiment right now in the industry where angel investors and venture capital funds are not funding early stage companies as fast as it was happening before. So that is affecting us, of course.
Yeah, I would assume. I mean, I think they are, deleveraging risk, right? And trying to
Yeah,
figure out, okay, who's got a unicorn opportunity, who's got,
yeah,
so, but I mean, intrinsically, investing is, 9 out of 10 are failures. And then you got your unicorn that makes you
exactly.
100x the other 9 failures, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, that's
it's
exactly right.
interesting way. You got to have a solid stomach for that opportunity. So, but
Yeah.
well, Nate. So, obviously, you mentioned when we were off camera, right, that you have your own podcast. What are some of the things that you've been doing that are kind of innovative, right, to capture market share? Sounds like you're a leader in your space, but what are you doing besides obviously coming on the Go for CEO channel? Like, what are some ways that you market and take that to the next level?
Well, we're doing several innovative things. Marketing wise, of course, we have the only podcast in the industry that talks about these topics, about global fast tracking global clinical trials, and more specifically, how Latin America is poised to be the next frontier in the global clinical trial industry, because it has been kind of put behind, or has been behind the scenes, but it hasn't really had the protagonism that it should have. And there's been a few signals in the market that suggest that Latin America is poised to be the next frontier. So we are actively promoting that on our podcast, on the articles that we write. We have the only column on a publication in the United States that talks about these topics. I've written like 30 different articles on it. We have a very, very active blog. It's probably the only blog in the industry that talks about these topics. I have the only newsletter actually that talks about this topic. Every week, every Tuesday, we release a new edition of the newsletter, and we highlight everything that is happening in Latin America in terms of innovation, clinical research, et cetera, and how to fast track clinical trials. And since we just expanded to Eastern Europe and Australia, we are now rebranding the newsletter to add these topics to the conversation that we're having every Tuesday with our readers. And in terms of new frontiers in our business, we are leading the only effort in Latin America to create a first-in-human infrastructure in Colombia, more specifically in Bucaramanga, to bring radiopharmaceutical clinical trials to the region. Nobody else has ever done this in the region, and this is an up-and-coming space that is poised to be the next frontier of therapeutics. It's actually called theranostics, and that this is poised to be a multi-billion-dollar industry in the next few years. And we are putting together a program to bring first-in-human research in theranostics in Latin America, involving placing a cyclotron, which is a $5 million equipment, is a particle accelerator in Colombia for that.
All right. Well, you just lost me there. So, so I was like,
yeah, it's
wow,
very innovative. I'm very excited about it. Yeah.
what's funny is a total side note, and we joked around. One of my best friends is named Julio Martinez, and his son is currently at Yale, his oldest son, and in the science he was working with Fermilab. So splitting atoms and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And when he talks about it, I'm like, so what does that do? And his mother was like, I don't know what they do. They do research, but who knows if he's going to make any money or whatever. So it's kind of funny. So, but it's an interesting topic, right? And it's needed, right? Obviously, as human beings and technology grows, and the things that you guys are doing to innovate space, it's cool. Obviously, with my Colombian background, to hear
Yeah.
that there's investments into Colombia
Yeah.
and the people out there and all that stuff. So we typically end our podcasts and guests with CEO, right? So client experience engagement, and operational excellence, right? And obviously, BioAccess has formed 14 years of knowledge and standard operating procedures, how you can break into a market like in Bucaramanga, right? Like
Yeah,
that's not easy, right? But
yeah.
you have your processes. So from a client experience and BioAccess and how you lead it, what would you say is kind of a value add proposition when you say to someone that is looking for your service, that wants to put a business in the box service and looks at BioAccess? What does that mean from a client experience?
Time, time savings, fast tracking. Those are the keywords that our clients associate with BioAccess, John, because we are probably the only one that I know of in the world, at least targeting the Latin American market, that promises time savings. Because the issue that our clients face is that doing this type of trials in the United States and Western Europe is extremely time consuming, unpredictable, expensive, uncertain. I mean, all these negative connotations or adjectives associated with conducting trials in North America and Western Europe, we solve by fast tracking the approvals in the countries where we operate. And we operate in countries that are friendly to these type of trials. There are countries where things are really difficult, and so we don't have operations there. But we can get a trial approved in Panama, in El Salvador, in Chile in about 60 days. And if you contrast that with 60 years in the United States, then I mean, it's a very appealing proposition that BioAccess offers to the market.
That's phenomenal. So
Yeah.
engagement, obviously from a a kid that was born in Colombia, goes to Boston, gets education, your brother's here and he's going through his gamut, and then you come together. What are some things that you do with your team, with your vendors, the people that you work with? What are some, we like to talk about engagement and how you're interacting. Why are they choosing BioAccess beyond the business?
Yeah.
The human element. What are some of those aspects that you feel are differentiators?
I think, John, that we are also startup. We behave as a startup. Our DNA is a startup. We have to be a startup because we have to match the needs of our clients. We have to be nimble, dynamic. Not every study is the same. Not every client is the same. And not every hospital is the same in the countries where we operate. So all the variables in the equation to set up a study are totally different in each one of the projects where we get involvement in. So we engage with our clients and with our with all the stakeholders in a very dynamic way. We act very fast. We make decisions like really quick. If you call me today and something needs to happen tomorrow, I make it happen tomorrow. Because I mean, we have to live and breathe the needs of our clients, which are all startups. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I like that. I mean, I think that mirroring of the way that you've
Yes.
set up your business is a very
Yeah.
dynamic
Yeah.
way, right? It's
Yeah.
challenging, right? Because startups are always the most risky,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it keeps it entertaining. I'm assuming on a daily
Oh,
basis.
oh
So
yeah, every day is different. Oh, totally. I don't have routine here in this
yeah,
job. There's no routine. I mean, on the contrary, if you look at the larger CROs, the larger contract research organizations, they are so large, they are global. They have 30, 40, 50,000 employees, 200 offices around the world. I mean, it's so bureaucratic. So it's
yeah.
just difficult for them to serve the needs of a startup company of 3 employees with a couple $1 million in the bank, and they need a study done next month, right? So,
Yeah. Well, you just gave us an insight. I was thinking selfishly, I'm like, oh, no wonder pharmaceuticals cost so much. They have 4,000 and 50,000 employees. So, uh,
yeah,
joking,
overhead is,
joking
yeah,
pharma,
I know.
joking pharma. So, all right. So, last one is operational excellence. Obviously, being nimble, staying like a startup mindset. BioAccess and the fluidity of how you do business operations is a big deal. So, are you guys recently starting to more use AI? Are there softwares that you're using?
Yeah.
How are you operationally staying so quick and fast to the trigger?
Yes. I will allude to something that I said before. The way we set up our team is very adaptable to the needs of our clients. We have resources all over. We have a huge Rolodex of contacts all over, and we can activate resources as needed based on the project. So we can act really, really fast based on what the client needs us to do. I remember when we started our first price list or proposal to a client, we only had like 3 lines in our proposals. Now we just counted them a week or so ago, close to 300 line items each in our proposals. Of course, every client will not use all those activities, but they will use a big percentage of those activities because we've been increasingly adding more and more activities just to be just to adapt to the needs of our clients because they keep asking us for more and more things to do. So as I said, we can activate resources as needed based on the needs of our clients. And now that you touch on AI, we are using AI tools for, I think the main way we're using that is to simplify the language of the documents. When you come to a patient with a 40-page informed consent document in legalese, that you're going to lose the patient in 5 seconds at hello. So what we do is we run it through AI and we simplify the document in 3 pages with colors and images, infographic style sort of presentation, visuals, so that the patient can feel identified with the study. He or she can understand in simple language the scope of the study and how the study will benefit him or her, and the risk, of course, associated with participating in an investigational medical product.
Nate, no, that's good to hear. I mean, it made me think of I had a rhino plastic thing that I had to do, and I remember the doctor gives me the packet, and it was like 10 pages. I'm like, all right, I don't want to do this anymore. So I'm
Exactly.
like,
Yeah.
what are
Yeah.
you hiding in the 10 pages, right? So,
Yes. Exactly.
but it was mostly like, hey, well, we don't know if it's going to work. We're going to deviate your septum. We're going to do this, and
Yeah.
maybe you can breathe, maybe you don't. So anyway, so it's
Yeah.
interesting stuff. So, well, awesome, Julio. Really exciting to have kind of a different type conversation on Go for CO community, BioAccess, and I want to have you just share. If we run into someone that's in the university or in the space that you need someone like BioAccess, why don't you share with them the best way to communicate with you and how to engage with BioAccess either through your website or LinkedIn or what have you?
Yes, just Google BioAccess, just Google Julio Martinez-Clark, or just go to LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. We have over 30,000 followers just on my personal LinkedIn profile, and we produce a massive amount of content every week. So we're easy to find on Google or LinkedIn. And of course, anybody can go to our website, BioAccessLA for Latin America.com.
Awesome, awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on, and what a great story, right? You get a brother who's invested time into that medical space. You got another brother in the engineering world. They're all kind of coming to America, colliding, and now going back and reinvesting in Colombia and South America and those things to build up. So I'm going to have to put some money on the side to maybe invest in that world. It sounds like it's going to be innovative. So
Yes, very
awesome,
exciting.
awesome,
Thank you
awesome.
for
Well,
having me here, John.
no, thank you. And Go for Show community, by the way, subscribe to the channel. Keep on growing this channel, growing the community, hearing from guys like Julio Martinez and his brother that founded BioAccess and all the things that are making, business community, SMB, small to medium-sized business, $0 to $1 billion. That's our world, and that's who we want to give a voice to. So subscribe to the channel.